Ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists, but they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
The View thought they could silence Karoline Leavitt, but her legal bombshell just turned their hypocrisy into a full-blown meltdown. Will this be the scandal that finally takes down the show for good? It's ironic that Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans conspiracy theorists, but they have been wrong about everything they've said over the last couple of years. Absolute chaos is unfolding at ABC, and The View is in complete meltdown mode. The network's executives are in sheer panic, desperately grasping for any way to stop the unstoppable tsunami heading straight for them. And the woman behind this media firestorm? None other than Karoline Leavitt, the bold, unapologetic conservative powerhouse who just dropped a legal bomb so devastating it has left ABC scrambling for cover. The wildest part? She never even had to set foot on The View to do it. This all started after yet another vicious, out-of-touch, and downright disgusting on-air attack by Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin, the trio that seems to thrive on tearing down anyone who doesn't fit their narrative. Their latest tirade was so blatantly unhinged that even some of their usual supporters have started shifting uncomfortably. But if they thought they could just steamroll their latest target like they always do, they miscalculated badly. Karoline didn't just clap back, she launched a full-scale legal strike. And it wasn't some empty threat or social media rant. No, she came prepared. She hit them where it hurts, straight at the foundation of their network's credibility. Now, the consequences are spiraling out of control faster than ABC can manage. Behind the scenes, it's pure chaos. Executives are frantically making calls, holding emergency meetings, and throwing every PR trick in the book at this situation, hoping to do damage control before it's too late. According to inside sources, ABC is so desperate to make this go away that they're practically pleading with Karoline to back off. But here's the problem: they don't hold the power anymore. She does. The fallout is shaking the network to its core. The View's reputation has already taken hit after hit over the years, but this might be the final blow. ABC knows that if Karoline's legal action gains traction, it could unravel a much bigger issue, one they might not be able to bury this time. Think about it. If Karoline pushes forward, it could open Pandora's box on everything happening behind the scenes at The View. How many more legal battles have been quietly settled? How many other voices have been silenced? The walls are closing in, and this time, the usual damage control tactics won't cut it. At this point, ABC isn't just trying to save face, they're trying to save themselves from what could be an absolute catastrophe. But here's the real question: is it already too late? Because once the truth starts spilling out, there's no stopping it. And by the looks of it, the floodgates are already wide open. So, what exactly did Karoline Leavitt say that sent Whoopi Goldberg into a full-on meltdown? What had Joy Behar visibly shaking and left Sunny Hostin completely speechless for once in her life? Oh, you do not want to miss this, because this takedown was brutal, and the aftermath even worse. But before we dive headfirst into this drama-packed spectacle, make sure to...
We will expose the fake news when they are fake. We will hold them accountable for their lies and smears of President Trump. I can also assure the American people that they are going to be hearing directly from the leader of the free world. And the press likes to hear that too. That's something that has not happened over the past...
Smash that like button and hit subscribe for more uncensored, no-nonsense updates. Because trust me, this is just the beginning. If you thought The View was in damage control mode before, wait until you hear what's next. Let's set the stage. The View thought they could tear into Karoline Leavitt and just walk away unscathed. Big mistake. On a recent episode, the panel of self-righteous talking heads went completely unhinged, launching an all-out attack on Karoline simply for existing as a young, successful conservative woman. They didn't just question her politics. They tried to tear down her entire credibility, making it personal in the most disgusting way possible. Leading the charge was none other than Joy Behar, armed with her usual smug arrogance and condescending smirk. She couldn't be bothered with facts or logic. No, she went straight for cheap shots, dismissing Karoline's intelligence, her experience, and her undeniable political savvy. Joy made it crystal clear that in her world, There was only one explanation for Karoline's rise to success. And what was that? Not her hard work, not her talent, not her sharp political mind. No, according to Joy Behar, Karoline was only hired because she's a 10 in Trump's eyes. Yes, you heard that right. Joy reduced everything Karoline had built, her career, her knowledge, her accomplishments, down to her looks in one single sentence. She did exactly what she claims to fight against. She dismissed a woman's success based on superficial nonsense. Hypocrisy doesn't even begin to cover it. But it didn't stop there. Next came Whoopi Goldberg, who, let's be honest, has never let logic get in the way of a good rant. And this time, she was on a warpath. She piled on, unleashing a tirade so out of touch, so completely detached from reality, that even some of the show's usual defenders had to take a step back. She railed against Karoline with so much venom, so much seething rage, that it was clear this wasn't about politics anymore. No, this was personal. The mere existence of a woman like Karoline, a young, fearless conservative who refuses to play by their rules, sent Whoopi into a complete spiral. And as the cameras rolled, as the audience watched,
they likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should wake up. They just paid $15 million to President Trump's future library. That's a great thing for the American people.
It became painfully obvious. They weren't attacking her arguments. They were attacking her. But here's the best part. Karoline didn't crumble. She didn't back down. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she fired back in a way that left Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny absolutely stunned. And trust me, what she said next changed everything. With her usual self-righteous tone, Whoopi Goldberg took aim at Karoline Leavitt, claiming that she wouldn't even have a job if it weren't for wokeness. Her exact words, "Yeah, I would like this young lady, this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was," she said, "there will be no wokeness here." Oh yeah? Let me explain something to you. Without that wokeness, you might not have that job because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The hypocrisy was absolutely stunning. The very same women who constantly preach about empowering young professionals, especially young women, had just publicly belittled and dismissed Karoline's entire career simply because they didn't like her politics. They weren't debating her qualifications. They weren't challenging her policies. No, they were flat out suggesting that she didn't deserve to be where she is. And trust me, Karoline wasn't about to let that slide. Because let's be real, this wasn't about women's rights. This was about control. According to The View, if you're a woman and you don't subscribe to their ideology, then suddenly all the struggles of past generations mean nothing for you. But Whoopi wasn't done. She doubled down, her voice rising, her hands waving, as if she were delivering some kind of grand historical lecture that Karoline, who has spent her career in politics, clearly already knew. Now, to hear you talk about it, to hear anybody talk about the wokeness, that wokeness was put in place for a reason. Because black people couldn't get into colleges. Because women couldn't get into the schools they wanted. At this point, it wasn't even about making a point, it was about putting Karoline in her place. Whoopi wasn't debating, she was scolding. And she wasn't finished. She kept going, her tone dripping with superiority, as if she was delivering some groundbreaking revelation. This is all women. See, this is not just black, Asian, this is all women. Women weren't invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure this was a person's world. But the irony, the blatant hypocrisy, it was right there in every single word. Here was Whoopi, a woman who claims to champion equality, essentially telling Karoline that she should be grateful for wokeness and should just sit down and listen instead of speaking her mind. Commentators wasted no time calling it out. The internet erupted with reactions, and one point stood out loud and clear. Whoopi was mansplaining the press secretary job to Karoline Leavitt. The same Whoopi who constantly rails against men for dismissing women's accomplishments was now doing exactly that to Karoline. And the best part? Karoline wasn't about to let Whoopi have the last word. You already know Whoopi just had to make it about race, as if that somehow justified her completely dismissing Karoline.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help because voters are going to re-elect President Trump back to the White House very soon because voters see these trials that are being brought forward against President Trump for what they are. They are sham show trials. They are election interference in an attempt to imprison President Trump. And the irony in all of this is that Joe Biden and the Democrats and these ladies on The View constantly say President Trump is the alleged threat to democracy, when in fact they themselves are wishfully thinking that President Trump will be imprisoned when he has not been convicted of any crimes. That is the real threat to democracy. Voters see that, and that's why President Trump continues his dominance in the polls, not just with Republicans and independents, but he's also picking up historic gains with Democrat constituencies such as African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and union workers.
Karoline's career. It was the classic deflection. When all else fails, turn it into a race issue and hope nobody notices the hypocrisy. But Karoline? She wasn't having it. She didn't just ignore the noise, she went for the kill. This wasn't just a clapback, this was an annihilation. And when she finally fired back, it was game over. Her response was sharp, precise, and undeniable. She wasn't about to let Whoopi, Joy, or anyone else rewrite the truth. With unwavering confidence, she laid it out in plain terms. His opponents are still saying the same rhetoric that led to those two attempts. The second attempt on President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that Trump is a threat to democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic, if you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie. And yes, you will act on it, just like we've seen twice against President Trump. Her words cut through the noise like a knife. Her voice was steady, her facts were airtight. And there wasn't a single thing they could say to spin it. She wasn't making emotional appeals or throwing around baseless accusations. She was stating cold, hard truth. And then, just when they thought she was done, she took it even further. Last week, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was a voter. I do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans. And frankly, they should seek immediate help because voters are going to re-elect President Trump back to the White House very soon. Because voters see these trials that are being brought forward against President Trump for what they are sham show trials. They are election interference in an attempt to imprison President Trump. And the irony in all of this is that Joe Biden and the Democrats, and these ladies on The View, constantly say President Trump is the alleged threat to democracy when, in fact, they themselves are wishfully thinking that President Trump will be imprisoned when he has not been convicted of any crimes. That is the real threat to democracy. Voters see that, and that's why President Trump continues his dominance in the polls, not just with Republicans and independents, but he's also picking up historic gains with Democrat constituencies such as African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and union workers. And just like that, cut to commercial. The network pulled the plug before she could even finish. They couldn't let her get that out on live television. But the damage was already done. And The View? They had no idea what was about to hit them next. Because this wasn't just about one fiery exchange on live TV. This was about exposing the game they've been playing all along, the media's constant divisive rhetoric, the blatant double standards. Karoline ripped the mask off in...
And you would think, ABC, having just paid $15 million for a defamation lawsuit, would think not to engage in conspiracy theories about assassination attempts, but I guess that's too much to ask from The View. I mean, I gotta ask you, because they said it, are you aware of any plots from Elon Musk to push President Trump down the stairs?
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about that.
Real time. That's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I am so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump, claiming he is the one dividing this country. He is not. The media is. And just like that, the entire conversation shifted. They wanted to silence her. They wanted to control the narrative. But Karoline had already dropped the hammer. And now, the fallout was completely out of their hands. For years, The media has thrived on pushing hoaxes, distorting facts, and spinning whatever narrative best serves their agenda. And The View? They've been right at the center of it, twisting stories, spreading misinformation, and attacking anyone who dares to challenge their version of reality. And the Democratic Party? Just as guilty. They've spent years relentlessly smearing Trump, fearmongering, and labeling millions of Americans as dangerous simply because they don't align with their ideology. But here's the reality they refuse to accept: Americans aren't falling for it anymore. And that's why today, President Trump is more popular than he's been since 2016. Because people aren't blind. They see the bias. They know the media lies. They recognize the manipulation. And they're rejecting it in real time. His rallies are packed. His support is growing. The grip that mainstream media once had over public opinion? It's slipping fast. And as Karoline laid all of this out, The View's audience was dead silent. The hosts weren't ready for this kind of unfiltered, unapologetic pushback. They're used to guests who play it safe, who backpedal the second things get heated. But Karoline? She wasn't intimidated. She wasn't there to cower or soften her words. She came prepared, and she delivered a brutal, unstoppable takedown that sent shockwaves far beyond the walls of the studio. The moment quickly went viral. Within hours, millions had watched Karoline expose The View for exactly what it is: a panel of bitter,
hope that the media will focus on the issues that matter to the American people, the issues that led them to vote in a resounding way for President Trump on November the 5th. That's what President Trump is focused on more so than ever. We have an array of executive action that will be rolled out on day one to change the lives of the American people immediately.
Out-of-touch elitists who pretend to champion women's rights, but only if those women think exactly like them. And this time, Karoline wasn't pulling punches. Joy Behar was the first to be completely obliterated. The woman who constantly preaches about feminism, about lifting women up, was the perfect example of its hypocrisy. The second a woman comes along who doesn't fit their narrative, Joy tears her down, mocks her, discredits her. It's disgusting. The irony of it all was almost too much. Joy Behar, the so-called champion of women, exposing herself as the very thing she claims to despise. And then Karoline turned her sights to Whoopi Goldberg. And you would think, ABC, having just paid $15 million for a defamation lawsuit, would think not to engage in conspiracy theories about assassination attempts. But I guess that's too much to ask from The View. I mean, I've got to ask you because they said it. Are you aware of any plots from Elon Musk to push President Trump down the stairs? Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about that. Whoopi says Karoline wouldn't have a job without wokeness. That's hilarious, considering The View's entire panel is made up of unqualified DI hires. The words landed like a grenade. The sheer audacity of her calling out the very system that has protected them for years left the panel speechless. The moment was undeniable, brutal, and impossible to spin. The View doesn't want strong women. They want obedient women, women who fall in line, repeat the script, and never, ever challenge the narrative. But Karoline Leavitt? She refused to play their game. And with one final, brutal statement, she made it clear, I refuse to play their game. Within minutes, her response went nuclear. The video spread like wildfire, taking over social media and dominating every platform. Hashtags like #CancelTheView and #Karoline Leavitt drops The View flooded Twitter, Instagram, and even Facebook. The internet had spoken. This wasn't just a viral moment. This was a full-blown reckoning. And that's when things went from bad to catastrophic for The View. They never saw this coming. They thought they could mock Karoline, dismiss her, and move on as they always do. They thought their usual smear tactics would work. Instead, they handed her the biggest PR victory of her career. And now, ABC was officially in crisis mode. Network executives were in full-blown panic. According to leaked reports, producers were furious. What was supposed to be a simple takedown of a young conservative woman had completely backfired. The hit piece had turned into one of the biggest PR disasters in the show's history. And the fallout? It's only getting worse. Rumors are swirling behind the scenes. Some ABC executives are seriously questioning whether Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg are more of a liability than an asset. The backlash has been relentless, and the network knows the clock is ticking. Because let's be real, how many more scandals can ABC survive before The View becomes a sinking ship? And it's not just public opinion turning against them. Sponsors are backing away. Brands that once proudly aligned themselves with The View are now rethinking their partnerships, questioning whether they want to be associated with a show that has become more toxic and alienating by the day. And so, I hope that the media will focus on the issues that matter to the American people, the issues that led them to vote in a resounding way for President Trump on November 5th. That's what President Trump is focused on more so than ever. We have an array of executive actions that will be rolled out on day one to change the lives of the American people immediately. Behind the scenes, ABC is scrambling. Desperate meetings, emergency PR strategies, a frantic attempt to stop the bleeding. But the damage is already done. And for The View, the question isn't just how to fix this, it's whether they even can. ABC is allegedly begging Karoline to drop the lawsuit before things spiral even further out of control. They know what's coming if this continues, and they're desperate to stop the bleeding. But here's the real kicker, even The View's own audience is turning against them. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. The View preaches empowerment but silences any woman who doesn't fit their agenda. Karoline Leavitt just exposed them for the frauds they are. And the replies? Absolutely brutal. Longtime fans who once defended the show are now calling them out for their blatant hypocrisy. Viewers who once tuned in religiously are realizing what's been right in front of them all along, that The View isn't about lifting women up, it's about controlling the conversation. If you don't fit their mold, if you dare to have independent thoughts, you're the enemy. And just when you thought this disaster couldn't get worse, it does. At this point, there's no denying it. The View has been playing with fire for years. They've skated by on controversy, on selective outrage, on double standards so obvious that even their own audience can't ignore them anymore. But this time, they might have finally burned themselves beyond repair. The backlash is uncontainable. The hypocrisy is too blatant to spin. And now ABC is facing a very real and very painful decision. Do they cut ties with the very hosts who have been dragging them deeper into scandal? Do they attempt to salvage what's left of their reputation before it's too late? Or do they double down, keep The View on the air, and risk watching it implode completely? One thing is absolutely certain, this isn't over. ABC is standing at a crossroads, and they have a massive decision to make. Clean house or cancel the show entirely. Because let's be honest, The View has always survived on controversy. But now, controversy might be the very thing that destroys it. That's The View's entire business model. Stir up outrage, ride the controversy, and cash in on the chaos. But when the backlash becomes bigger than the ratings boost, it's game over. And right now, they're dangling by a thread. ABC knows it. The sponsors see it. Even The View's most loyal viewers are starting to wonder, has the show finally run its course? What was once a talk show that dominated daytime TV has morphed into a PR nightmare. Instead of leading conversations, they've alienated audiences, pushed away sponsors, and backed themselves into a corner so tight that even they might not be able to spin their way out this time. So here's the real question. Could this finally be the moment that takes down The View for good? Or will ABC double down, desperately trying to ride this out, only to crash even harder? Will they attempt to save what's left, or will their refusal to acknowledge reality send the show into total freefall? Now it's your turn. What do you think? Did The View finally go too far? Was Karoline Leavitt's lawsuit the wake-up call the media desperately needed? And do you think ABC will actually pull the plug on The View after this disaster? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's hear it. And before you go, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a breaking update. This story isn't over yet, and trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next. See you in the next one.